Well, congratulations. You're tuned into the exciting season number 2 of the Axe and Scalpel podcast. I am Johnny V. I spent about 10 to 15 years in radio, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter, depending on how you look at it. I am joined live at the new location of the Imago Dei Academy here in Ladysmith, Wisconsin, joined with my friend, veterinarian Jacob Smith. Jacob, what have you been up to? We haven't done one of these in a long time. I'm excited for the reboot.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's good to be back. Yes, I am Dr. Jacob Smith, veterinarian. What in the world would a veterinarian be doing talking about faith and culture and the intersection of politics? Well, that's where my interests lie outside of the office. Back in 2020, when everybody was really bored and there wasn't a lot to do, I also completed a fellowship with the Colson Center for Christian Worldview based out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. So I like talking all things faith, culture, and politics, and boy, did we have a week where those things intersected. And because of that, Johnny, we brought on a guest here tonight. We needed a young person because a young person's perspective is really important with everything that happened this week with Charlie Kirk. You can't get away from it. And I think as somebody that respected what Charlie Kirk did, I think it's important that people talk about the things that happened this week and give a little bit of perspective, because I think that's what Charlie Kirk would have wanted to see, that the conversation doesn't die because of the violence and, the poor choices of one human being. We're going to do that here tonight. The Axe and Scalpel podcast, as Johnny said, is back now for season 2, and we're going to run with it for a long time now. And so to introduce the aforementioned young person, we have my lovely daughter, 18-year-old Brooklyn Smith. Brooklyn, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe what it's like to live with such an awesome dad.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I'm the oldest daughter of Dr. Smith here. Like he said, I'm 18 years old. I'm a senior in high school. I enjoy learning about science, politics myself, and faith. I feel strongly about my faith and politics and how I can move this generation and make change as I'm growing and seeing what America has become and how I can help make that change. Next year, I plan to head to college and study medicine and hopefully make an impact someday as a physician as well. All
right. Well, it's great to have you there, Brooklyn. And, I'll start off by saying, Johnny, you have spent time, a significant period of your time, in radio, obviously, watching media, covering media yourself. Have you ever seen anything like what we've witnessed here in the last couple of weeks in our country?
Well, when it comes to somebody that's in the media, first off, probably just for timing of this, at the timing of this recording, today was the day that they did bring the charges against Robinson.
Correct.
I'm not 100% sure if you caught that.
Yeah, they did this afternoon.
That was on TV. They did like a webcam thing, and you got to saw the Robinson guy in a cell wearing like a bulletproof vest and very unemotional. Obviously, he didn't say anything. He just stated his name, so they knew it was him. But when it comes to a gentleman like Charlie Kirk, and that's why it's so awesome that Brooklyn is here with us today, because a lot of us that have dived into the political pool, probably for the last 10 to 11 years, you saw something or heard something that Charlie Kirk was doing. Yeah. Whether it's a YouTube short of how he challenges the liberals for debate. If you've seen those, you can see why a lot of people are really upset about what happened, because he did all of this without being angry. I don't even think I ever saw him truly yell or lose his composure.
You got yelled at a lot.
Oh, yeah. He got think of the things that you never want to be called. I think he got called just about every one of them to his face.
Right.
And he still took it like a champ. And the biggest thing that I think we should talk about today is not so much the loss, because that's going to be something that everybody's going to have to kind of deal with on their own. But look at the things and the gains in the last few days that what has happened has produced. You probably saw in the news the turning point chapters across the nation.
Yeah.
I want to say, and I could be wrong about this number, but wasn't it like 37,000?
Well, you're
or
right.
Something like that, like a number that you couldn't even really comprehend at first.
You're right. And so Brooklyn, give them the update we were just talking about.
So I was just scrolling on Facebook probably about 25 minutes ago now, and I saw that now, this afternoon they had reported over 54,000 requests to start chapters between high schools and colleges.
And you told me something, Brooklyn, awesome about Charlie and what he had kind of wanted for his life, what he wanted to see out of Turning Point in terms of numbers.
So just the other day, seeing, the number in the 30,000s you had mentioned, just seeing that the other day, I'd been doing a little research on that. And in his lifetime, his goal was around 20,000 chapters.
Wow.
That was his goal. And if you look at the website now, what they last reported before this, terrible tragedy was that there was around 800 at that time. And now we're looking at over 50,000 chapters being started.
And John, you bring up, and that's just, I guess, that is just spectacular. I mean, that's exactly what he wanted. That's just what his wife wanted to see. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen more powerful TV than her speaking the other night. That was incredible. And we've seen so much negativity that gets covered a lot, even by conservative outlets like Newsmax and Fox, about the disgusting behavior. And I don't want to give an ounce of that attention tonight. Just like you, John, I want to talk about the amazing things that are coming out of this a little bit. The only thing I want to maybe give attention to a little bit is root causes. But I guess, first of all, Brooklyn, I'd ask you as a young person, I don't operate in all the social media spheres. Where was Charlie Kirk's, influences? Where did you see him? Where did you contact him the first time you saw him? Where were young people getting, contact with Charlie Kirk?
I think, apps such as TikTok and Instagram were, the most common areas I'd see him. When I talk with my peers about it, that's where they've seen him the first time they saw him. And many people you'll see on there too, like not only do they pick parts of his debate and bring them on there, but people will talk about them, people discuss them. And I think seeing his videos and then seeing other people, what they want to call influencers, showing these clips, not only did Charlie influence these people, but having other people on these apps, like I said, the influencers, making these videos and reacting to them really, influenced other people watching, us young people, some people we look up to that are, not staying silent. And in Hollywood, you see some people that are, going out of their way and, speaking their voice and not being afraid. And I think that also helped show our generation that we don't need to stay silent and we need to be loud. And so, yeah, I'd say like TikTok, Instagram, those were the top areas that I would see him, and those are the most common apps right now.
So I'm going to throw an idea at you guys then, and kind of one of the things that I think happened here with Charlie Kirk, and part of the reason people loved him, but also part of the reason people didn't, and it has to do with this social media thing. And you guys tell me if you think I'm right or not. So Brooklyn, a lot of these apps, TikTok, Instagram, etc., the videos that you would get out of that are short, are they not? There's usually short snippets of him with brief interactions between people. So, it fits the application. I get that. And that's probably a lot of what drew people to Charlie Kirk in a positive manner. But I also think it could end up being what drew people in a negative manner, because we live in like this society of instant gratification where our attention span is a snippet. And it is so easy for people to take 5 seconds of something that he said and cut that out and use that as a hammer, in an argument where they'll take that out of context and then use it in a negative against Charlie.
They'll twist it. Yeah.
Is that kind of what you saw too, John, in terms of the negative coverage of Charlie Kirk?
Well, that's a good one, because Brooklyn might have actually seen this. Kirk actually gave TikTok some credit. He was told, and he understood that people weren't able to see Charlie Kirk stuff on that platform.
Yeah.
And he contacted him. TikTok got back to him. And next thing you know, like Charlie Kirk said, within a couple days, he started getting people saying, hey, saw you on TikTok. So whatever he did, what other algorithm, the word that they love to use so much, they did, at least in this instance, it sounds like TikTok listened. But once again, he had to be the aggressor. He had to do the contacting, Why do you see this guy, and this lady, but you never see me? We're all doing the same thing. But why am I not on your platform? Once he addressed that, I'll give TikTok, I suppose, some due diligence, as they say. They started getting him in there. And like Charlie Kirk also mentioned, he noticed because he was gaining more traction.
Yeah.
Because most of the stuff that I've seen, it's always been YouTube. Are you guys TikTokers? I'm not a TikToker personally.
Yeah.
I'll see the YouTube shorts.
Yeah.
But what's nice about those, you see it, it'll be a 5-minute clip. And it depends on our way of thinking. The caption could be, watch Charlie Kirk, destroy this libtard.
Yes.
And then there could be another one from the other side that says, watch this young, educated student take down dumb Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, or call him racist or a bigot
Things of
or
that
something
nature.
like that. Brooklyn, is that kind of what you saw reflected too in a lot of the videos on social media that kids are tossing around?
Definitely. And I've seen that even more like in this last week with these negative people, is that they're taking clips of his and twisting what he was saying and trying to make it sound evil when there's only so much time, their time limit they have. And they'll, take something and say, oh, he's being negative. Like, why would you support this when they didn't get the other 25 minutes of the conversation?
So what I bring up there, and just an example I wanted to bring up, and this week you saw Governor from Utah, Spencer Cox, a lot in the media because of the coverage and because of the pursuit of the perpetrator. And boy, I gained a lot of respect for that guy, the way he handled himself this week. But one of the things he talked about was the memification of society, right? And people just taking tiny snippets like that and then turning it into a tool in their argument. And one of the examples I saw this week is my brother is on Facebook and social media, and I just got back on Facebook this week after like 7 years, by the way. Johnny, you better be my
Streak
friend.
is broken.
You better be my friend on Facebook again now. It's my daughter, she debated, and I know my wife
You've been blocked already.
My wife debated heavily befriending me on Facebook. But my brother showed me a relative of mine and had made a post, she leans more on the liberal side, and made a post that it was a meme, and it was about Charlie Kirk in a negative light, and it used an example that Charlie Kirk has said we should stone gays to death. And I thought, okay, I've seen plenty of Charlie Kirk. I can't imagine that he said anything like that. And so I went back, and everybody needs to do this. And it's, you see something crazy like that, go back and take a look. So I went back and I looked this up, and where that stemmed from, it turned out that he was having a discussion on his show regarding another Christian, a woman who, fashions herself as very pro-LGBTQ, et cetera, which is fine. That's her thing. But she was on a video making arguments for that stance. And she was utilizing Bible verses to help support her argument. And so in Charlie's view, she had cherry-picked a verse from Leviticus. And if any of you have read Leviticus, right, that's a slog, because it's a lot of thou shalt not do this, thou shalt do that. It's Levitical law. And so what Kirk in the video was making the point is that if you're going to use Leviticus to support your stance here, if you're going to cherry-pick this Bible verse, you have to be careful, because just on the page before in Leviticus, it says, shall not lay with another man. Right? And that's what he was pointing out. His point was you can't cherry pick Bible verses. He didn't utilize Leviticus to slam the LGBTQ community. He was making the point that you can't cherry pick Bible verses, because you got to be awfully careful with that. And now we could do a whole nother show about Old Testament, New Testament, and Levitical law versus the New Covenant. But the point of the matter is Charlie Kirk wasn't saying that he wanted to stone gay people. It's just absurd.
Right.
So my point is that I want to get to too, is if anybody, I challenge anybody, go and watch like 15 to 20 minutes of a Charlie Kirk debate. And then afterwards, you come and tell me if you think truly that guy had hate in his heart and was this bigot and racist that some of these people made him out to be. It's just ridiculous. Am I crazy, guys, or is that kind of the way you read it too?
No.
And actually you brought up a great point, and people need to really kind of understand this too. Forgive me, I can't think of the guy's first name. You might know it. His last name is Rubin.
Yeah, Dave Rubin.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dave Rubin, if you've heard this by now, awesome. But if a lot of people don't know, when it comes to the gay community and Charlie Kirk, they instantly want to say that he demonizes them, he hates them, they think they should all go to hell. That's basically their template belief when it comes to that lifestyle and what Charlie Kirk thinks of it. And that can't be farther from the truth. His first name was it David Rubin?
Dave Rubin.
Dave Rubin.
Yeah.
Okay. Did a lot of Turning Point
Events.
shows on campuses with him.
And a great friend of Charlie Kirk.
And David Rubin does not promote this. Hopefully he won't be mad about me doing it, but I just saw him do it recently. Did you know that he's a gay guy?
Yeah, I just had come to that in the last couple months. And I've always, you see him on Fox occasionally, Newsmax, et cetera. And yeah, he's been married to a man for 10 years.
That's exactly what he says. That's exactly what he says. He goes, I don't wear that on my sleeve. I don't really like to always just come out and say that I'm gay, but I am gay. I've been married to a gentleman for 10 years. And he says, him and Charlie Kirk, they've broken bread. They've traveled. They've been to each other's houses. They've gone on family outings.
Had double dates, essentially. Right?
And for a gentleman that's supposed to hate and condemn that lifestyle, all Charlie Kirk is normally saying when it comes to that aspect of it, because the thing that scared him was three-pronged. The thing that scared people that don't agree with him was three things for the most part. The gay community, genders, colleges, for the most part. He liked economics. He liked all that other stuff. For the most part, the ones that he was trying to preach about was the grooming that kids are getting at a young age to make them think that they are. We all, three of us here, believe in two genders. We'll keep it simple at that one. But the college thing that was getting him in trouble, just throwing this out there, when he wrote the book, College is a Scam. And he's talking to these kids that have degrees that a lot of his argument was AI, artificial intelligence. In 10 years, these campuses are going to be empty.
Yeah.
A lot of these degrees you're trying to get, they're not going to exist. AI can do all that stuff. Now, to throw this out there, you got students paying a lot of tuition. You have professors making a lot of money. This guy's traveling the country, and he knows his audience. He knows his colleges, because when I saw him at Purdue, which is an engineering school, he had nothing but real compliments to give that school, because that is a university, that's a degree that we need. We need builders. We need inventors. We need people.
You can take that and do something
that can make things work. And he understood that. He wasn't saying that them kids at that university are wasting time and money to pursue something. He's talking about the kids that want to study African tribal language back in 1742. I don't know how many jobs you're going to get with that one out there.
The useless degree crowd is what you're saying.
Correct. And what he was trying to expose is the people, a lot of times, that are pursuing these useless degrees, for some odd reason in their heads, they instantly start thinking they're better than a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what they've been taught in college. And if people knew the Charlie Kirk like David Rubin does, like a lot of the people that he's traveled with, they'd find out that he has opinions. He's not hateful. There's a difference. You can have an opinion. You can have a disagreement on even a lifestyle. That doesn't mean he hates you and he condemns you. If anything, he's trying to not convince you, but let you know there's reasons that you might be feeling this way. It wasn't God's intention, if that kind of makes sense.
Well, so while we're on the subject, it does. And while we're on the subject of college, then, so Brooklyn, would get you back in here then. So, in your demographic, so, students say 16 to 24, high school, going into college students. I mean, is it possible anymore to be able to have debate on campus? Is that culture, that, maybe John and I grew up with, for sure, like my dad and my parents before me that went to college, where debate on campus was really a serious thing. Is that something that students are willing to even engage in anymore? Or is it just anger on social media? Is that all we're left with anymore?
Right. Yeah, that's how I would put it. Exactly that. Sadly, we aren't, given the chance to debate often. Personally, I've been shut down myself by teachers just by subjects I've written about, saying, oh, you can write about that, but we're not going to talk about that in front of the class because it might cause a little too much conflict. And that's what I think sad is in our schools, there's other people writing about certain things, like Roe v. Wade, one side of it, and it was okay for her to speak on that in class. But if there's another side of it, I had one of my friends tell me, yeah, he looked at me today. The teacher looked at me and said that he doesn't want me to speak about this. And it was the other side of Roe v. Wade, because he didn't want to cause any problems in the class and didn't want to, have anyone get into an argument.
Want to ruffle feathers.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he didn't want to make it uncomfortable.
So I feel like it's made kids scared, to write about certain things or speak their voice. And especially in my generation, I'm one that's, I'm not afraid to say it how it is. I'm not going to let, I will never be disrespectful, of course, but I will never let, somebody try to scare me out of my beliefs and what I want to say, and I feel like that's, sadly in our public schools, even, me personally have, dealt with it a couple times. I think it's debates kind of being shut down.
Well, you brought it up perfect. Being scared.
Right.
It's been unfortunately a while since we've been on a college campus or any sort of campus trying to learn some stuff, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that Charlie Kirk exposed was the conservative voice being silenced on campuses across the country. And one thing that he brought to the table was the opportunity for them to talk. Now, if you remember when this crusade kind of started, the guy couldn't even really get onto campus. They'd say no. They'd say, hey, the protesters are going to be the numbers are going to be so, we're not even going to take any chances. We don't want destruction. We don't want any of that. but he fought through that. And if you look at the transformation between when he first started doing those to even one that he did just say 3 weeks ago, the difference is huge. It used to be liberals were coming up one after another. Boom, 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 boom. But systematically, he'd take them down. He very rarely lost a debate.
And that's what bothered people, because if somebody came at him, I mean, the guy was so well read, right? There wasn't a subject that came up or debate he would have where the person he was debating with was more well read than that guy. And when he would get, you'd watch a little bit, if somebody would get a little bit of a biting tone with him, he'd come back with a little bit of a biting tone, but it was never insulting, never name calling, never anything like that. And so it's kind of number one, the thing I wanted to address tonight was just the misconceptions about him. And again, if I could challenge anybody, just watch him for 15 to 20 minutes and tell me what you think. And because I think that you probably, if you were against Charlie Kirk or had a really strong opinion of him one way or the other, maybe you'll still disagree on his politics, but I'd have a hard time believing that you would find a hateful, bigoted guy like he gets made out to be. And so that was the number, that was one thing I wanted to cover tonight, one of four, I should say. The second thing I wanted to cover, guys, and get your opinion on was just, and this relates to what I said about Charlie and his Christian belief, because one of the things that I saw frequently this week that was repeated was, him saying he wanted to be remembered first as a Christ follower, which I couldn't be more impressed with that, of course. And it's this notion that he faced and that a lot of Christian believers faced, and that's that Christianity is somehow this racist and bigoted religion, right? Just because there might be certain stances on things like gay marriage or gender, etc. And here is the truth about that, right? The Bible begins and then it winds down with a couple really rock solid statements and principles that guide the whole thing, right? Number one is right in the beginning in Genesis, right? First chapter of Genesis. God says he created man in what?
His own image.
His own image, right? He created man in his own image. He made them female and male. In his own image, he created them. That means no matter what your stance is on sexuality, no matter what your race is, no matter who you are, as a human being, you are created in God's image. We're all on an even playing field.
Yeah.
Now, we can have more discussions on sin down the line, but right out of the gate, we are all on an even playing field. Right? And then as we get into the Gospels, right, the majority of the New Testament, we get into the Gospels, Matthew and Mark, it's clear. He says all of the commandments can be summed up in two things. Love your God and love who else?
Neighbor.
Your neighbor, right? Love your God and love your neighbor. Those are the bookends, right? And in between, we get into, further discussion about obviously in the Old Testament, it's a long history of the push and pull. What happens? And the Israelites are the example because they're God's chosen people. What happens when we push towards God and abide by what he says? And what happens to us when we go away from that? And then the same thing, the teachings of the New Testament. We're teaching what happens when we move towards God. What are those behaviors? And what are the behaviors that push us further from God? And we're all guilty of them. And so we start with that premise. And if you understand that basic premise, which Charlie Kirk did, you understand that the Christianity that we all know is not racist, it's not bigoted, and that's a cop-out for people who might be running from God, want to reject God, or maybe they've got something else, that sours them to the Christian religion. But I wanted to get that out there. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think he is having, and has had a huge influence on our generation, faith-wise. I think he and, sadly through this tragedy is, turning a lot of faces and waking up a lot of young minds to think, wow, like he really felt strongly about these things and we need to open our eyes to there's a bigger picture than what we're being taught and what we're being forced into learning.
So maybe talk about that a little bit, Brooklyn, because one of the things I'm a hockey coach, and one of the things I witnessed is in the last year watching like high school hockey games, especially, is all of a sudden there's kids praying after the games together. The teams are getting together and praying at center ice, and you're seeing that in other sports too. I mean, clearly, Brooklyn, maybe elaborate on what you've seen for us. There's something changing among young people. Is Christianity becoming cool again in a way?
It is. I'd like to look at it as, compare it to, I guess, you think about now, like trends, like trending is a big thing with kids. Like this new shoe just came out, now everyone's going to have it, or this new device came out, now everyone's going to have it. Now, I think with social media, especially, as much as it can have a negative impact on us young kids, I think Christianity is, become a trend, but in a positive way. When people say trends, sometimes you think about like, oh, people are only doing it to be cool. But I think now they're seeing kids and young adults, making this important in their life. And I think, making it cool has been pushing kids to, express their faith in a sports game. Wow, my friend really feels strongly about this. Maybe I should get involved. And they may not feel strongly about it right away, and they may just be doing it to fit in. But over time, I think a lot of minds, and I've seen it myself and some of my friends and people I know, and I know my brother has said the same to me with some of his teammates that, they have been getting together and praying on the ice and things like that. And I think for some, it's been like, okay, this is cool. Like my friends are doing it. And now I think, kids are digging deeper into faith, and because of this becoming, Christianity, like you said, becoming cooler. I think it is very important and a very good thing.
So Johnny, then I'll ask you this question too, because here's another forum then, and you're kind of our resident sports expert. I see that as a guy who doesn't watch a ton of sports, even though I was an athlete all the way up, and I don't watch a ton on TV anymore. It seems like I'm seeing that more frequently among our generation sports heroes here. Am I correct in that? I'm seeing the Lamar Jacksons of the world, the Patrick Mahomes of the world. It's cool to put a cross on your cheeks again. Are you seeing the same thing?
Well, you brought up a good one with Lamar Jackson recently. I don't even, my father told me about this. I think it happened to say about a month ago or whatever. He was in the news because he said something, and I think it might have been with how, let's just say Baltimore is not a very safe city.
Okay.
And it might have had something to do with when Trump was bringing the guards to help clean up some of these cities. And Lamar Jackson, being that playing in Baltimore, said something to that effect. And of course, the left-leaning side of the news decided to bash him for it.
Okay.
And I'll give Lamar credit, just like I've always given Charlie Kirk credit. The guy doesn't waver. If there's one thing that you always appreciate is consistency. And Kirk was always consistent with his beliefs. He didn't really waver. And speaking of sports, the head coach of the Oregon football team recently had some things to say about Charlie Kirk at a press conference. Yeah. And very ceremoniously, I think it was after their game, there's footage of, I don't know if it was their whole team, but it was a lot of them going to an end zone and praying.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that more and more. You're seeing professional baseball players writing on their cleats, writing on their hats. Charlie Kirk with maybe a Bible passage.
On a Dodgers hat.
Yes. So if there's one thing that Kirk definitely did do is, one, he tried to let a voice that thought was supposed to be silent, gave that you don't have to take everything that they're going to give you. You got to fight back a little bit. Not so much fighting back is a violent term. Pushing back, I should just say. Just push back on them. Just because they say something doesn't make it 100% golden. And that's really what Kirk did. And the sporting community, I wish I could give you a whole lot of names off the top of my head. Jonathan Isaac from basketball. There's just a bunch of them that, when this first happened, I want to ask both of you guys, actually. I don't know when you found out about it. Did you find out the day that it did happen?
Yeah, like within an hour.
Yep.
Okay. So it happened. Now, we both went through the Trump attempt. We went through the first Trump assassination. The second one never really materialized, thank God. But I want to ask you, when you found out that Kirk got shot, before having any idea of how it happened, where the shot came from, you just heard that he was shot. What was your initial gut reaction?
Well, Brooklyn, you want to go first?
I think I was very emotional, and I think I had to, I put a lot of thought into it at first, because of course I didn't know him at all. I didn't know him personally. All I've been able to do is listen to him and hear him speak. And I think I was very emotional. I think it really,
just because of how he resonated with young people, and was kind of part of pop culture for young people.
Yeah, and I'd like to believe, obviously there's evil alive in this country, and I think it was kind of like a spiritual hit. Like I kind of, felt like my heart felt heavy. That's like really what I felt at first. I didn't feel like I was angry or wanted, obviously it is, I have felt a little bit of anger over it, but at first I felt like I was more upset. I was more sad, and I felt like, like I said, my heart was heavy. It really, really just, I felt like in the moment, I just kind of went blank. I was in school. I just felt like I had work in front of me, and I was like, wow, like this hurts.
It's kind of like in Star Wars, where they mentioned you felt a disturbance in the Force. Couldn't really explain it. And you see a lot of videos of people saying that I never met him personally. I don't know if you did.
I never met him
Never met him personally. Paying attention to the guy for almost a decade. Loved everything that he stood for. And, well, Jacob, I want to ask you point blank, when you found out that he was shot, was your initial reaction, is he going to make it? Or do you think this was fatal?
Well, my first reaction was instinctively was I wasn't surprised. And not specifically about Charlie. I just wasn't surprised that somebody of his stature and on the conservative side of things had fallen victim to something like this. I mean, you had 2 attempts on Trump. I mean, there is just such a level of vitriol from the point of view that's opposite of Charlie's or anybody else. I mean, it could have been any other major political figure, and I still wouldn't, I would have had the same reaction, as I wasn't that surprised. And then my second instinct was oh God, I hope he's going to be okay. I hope this is one of those things where he's going to give the thumbs up from the hospital bed, right? Or send out a tweet, hey, I took one, here for the team and I'm going to be okay. And as the thing progressed over the next half hour and you're not seeing a tweet come out, you're not seeing any information, because I knew if he was okay, that guy, he's going to be sending out a social media message like, thumbs up, everybody, I got this. But there was nothing from his family. And then I saw I was watching the Fox coverage of it, and the reporter they had at the White House had said the White House has kind of gone dark on information for the last 20 minutes. And then I knew this isn't good. And then they had an emotional reporter come on and said they thought they saw him get hit in the neck. And then my heart sank on that, because, as a hobby firearm enthusiast, I do a lot of hunting and shooting. And I just know, you take a bullet to, anywhere above the belly button essentially, and you're in trouble. And I was just really worried for him. And then of course, an hour and a half later, it was the worst. And it was just disgusted is the way I felt.
And now spiritually, okay, so thank God Trump was able to survive that assassination attempt. Now, as a Christian, when I find out that Charlie Kirk got shot, my initial reaction is probably like yours. I don't think God's going to let this guy go right now.
Yeah.
He's pretty important right now.
Right.
Trump was important. We definitely did not need that to happen. I think God's got this guy back. So I almost took it kind of like he's going to be okay. And like you mentioned, it didn't take long for them to say that he went from critical condition to, next thing you know, you're watching a guy live on air that just got that news, and now he's got to pivot and mention that he was, Will Cain on Fox.
Yeah.
Watch that one. You can tell them guys were boys. They were friends. And he had to announce that, be one of the first ones that announced that.
Yeah.
And so you kind of wonder, okay, well, God's plan is always better than ours.
Right.
And when you look back on this now, the word martyrs used quite a bit. I don't believe Charlie Kirk wanted himself to be a martyr, but there are some videos where they'd ask him, hey, you get a lot of threats, man. What if something happens? What do you want people to remember? And you brought that up earlier. I just want people to remember my courage that I had regarding my faith. That's pretty much the big thing. And so then you find out that he is now passed, and not to get all heated, but I don't think it took more than about a minute and a half or 2 minutes for the first video of a kid on that campus that just witnessed it, video themselves celebrating that they just watched watched evil. They call him evil. We call them evil. You know how that goes, but basically jumping around, celebrating that he died. And then we also hear some of our politicians that are in very, very high esteemed positions over in Minnesota, over in California, basically making excuses as to why this guy probably had some sort of valid reason to do something like this. And that's kind of want to ask you both this question too.
Well, and so that's, that was kind of number 4 on my list of 4 things. And maybe this is where we can kind of take this thing home for, the next 10 minutes again, I don't even want to name any of those people that behaved in that manner, right? It's disgusting. It's not human. I remember a time, John, both you and I are obviously older than Brooklyn. And maybe Brooklyn, you can even remember a time, because things have changed so rapidly in the last 10 to 15 years. But there was a time when it didn't matter the person's background. When a human being dies, like, you show them respect, right? You show them respect. You show the family respect. That's a somber moment, because in the end, dust to dust, baby, right? We are all We're all in the same boat. And that's a somber moment to be respected. And the fact that we are in a place now where that doesn't happen really makes a person reflect. And so, Brooklyn, I'd want your comment on this, because Governor Cox, again, I'll go back to him. He blamed a lot on social media. And I think he's on to something there. And it might be for different reasons, and he believes it. I'll give you my opinion. But Brooklyn, I mean, overall, do you think social media, after you watch this, is social media a net negative or a net positive?
Well, I have to say there is a lot of negative. There is. And I think that was a great point you brought up with, Governor Cox talking about that, because even before this, and kind of putting a little bit of a blame on social media, but even before this, like, I see, if I wasn't someone who felt strongly about my beliefs and morals and values, you see on social media all the time, like you said, people, twisting videos, going back to that and things, that is negatively influencing people. And I think, this, assassin, Tyler Robinson or whatever, if he was, he was on social media, obviously, there's exchange messages and things on there. I think social media probably is a factor in a lot of people's lives negatively. Sorry.
So here's what the major point where I want to go with this, and in my opinion on social media is there's some good for it. Obviously, you can connect with your grandmother, you can connect with your great grandmother. If she's on vacation in Barbados, you can have a conversation, you can see what she's doing, right? That's the positive of it. But the negative of it is I hear this word over and over again, and the word is dehumanization. And it gets thrown around a little bit flippant, but the fact of the matter is when you only view people, when you only view another human being through social media, if your life is lived through that medium, people aren't people anymore. Try to follow me here, and if you can understand what I'm saying is a guy like Charlie Kirk, to somebody who maybe is a fan of his or who can't stand him, like the perpetrator, obviously, he's not even a person, right? Because you've only ever seen him on a computer screen or a laptop or an iPad or a phone. You've never interacted with that person. Your view of him is no different in a lot of ways than a character in the movies. And so there's no human connection with him. And it goes that way for even a lot of people who you might consider friends because of social media, right? You can say things about a person. You can interact with a person without ever having to face them,
right?
And then get an immediate response. So it gives people a level of boldness and a level of meanness in a lot of ways that you'd never have with somebody in person. People that use the term dehumanize, like I said, they use it and kind of thrown around as a kind of a pop term now, but it's really accurate, because social media has created an environment where you're not conversing with a human being anymore. You are through a keyboard, but again, it's through a keyboard. It's no different than looking at a character in the movies or on a TV show. It's a caricature of somebody. It's not a real human being. And so for a guy like Tyler Robinson, for instance, all he ever saw was the caricature of Charlie Kirk that was presented to him. Never would have had an understanding of Charlie Kirk other than what he was fed through his screen.
Right.
So he was never a real human being. And he was never a human being until, I hate to say this, but until he was looking through the scope, right? And that's when he was finally a human being. And that's the environment that social media, or that's the problem that social media has created, is it has taken away the human interaction, the ability of us to know another person intimately and to humanize them. And that's where bullying comes in. That's where the inability to have a constructive argument comes in, because you can behave in a manner that you would never in person. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I get your point exactly there. And I think, the positive side of it is that, people like me were able to learn about Charlie Kirk and what he stood for on social media. But also, like you said, that's only a small clip of him and his life and his beliefs. And people, like you said, like the perpetrator, that's all he knew him from was that. And then he took what he heard from that and what he disagreed with and took his life because of it. And that's the really sad and extremely negative part of it.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a contrived version. It's a molded version. Somebody molded Charlie Kirk into a character that they wanted him to be. That's what people like Robinson or some of these other people that have trashed him on social media without ever knowing him. That's what they get, is that snippet, the memification of a person, to use Spencer Cox's words. Johnny, what do you think on that?
Well, actually, that's a very good point you brought up, too, because if you've noticed, the overuse of social media definitely affects real life person to person interaction one on one. You'll notice sometimes if he's doing those debates when he gets somebody that they had a good point. Charlie Kirk kind of debunks that. They go off the rails. Now it's name calling. Now it's screaming. Now it's yelling. Guess one thing that is absolutely useless to do when you're on social media? There's no yelling at your screen. If anything, you have time to refocus, retrace your steps, put out the perfect thing that you want versus on the spot debate. And that's what Charlie Kirk was fantastic.
Has anybody, John, I'll ask you first, has anybody ever won an argument via Facebook post?
I don't-
Has that ever happened?
I don't think so.
I want to hear, I want to
You know?
find the person who has, in
You-
the history of time, who has won an argument
Wait,
via Facebook
Wait,
post.
you receive like legitimate, not sarcastic thumbs up. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I finally I flipped that person, I think.
Yeah.
All right, I got the
Yeah.
emojis that I was looking for.
I want to meet the person that wrote on Facebook, I concede. You're right. I concede. Conversation over. Congratulations, sir. I want to meet that person.
And it's kind of like a couple arguing sometimes even. Normally, you might have won the argument if all of a sudden your stance goes on to something different, like a different topic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Normally, if you agree with something and you're pretty solid with the foundation that you based your argument on, you stick with it. It's going to take a lot to try to convince you otherwise, right? But say you start putting some holes in my argument and I'm starting thinking, I'm starting to lose a little momentum here. Okay, they might have me on this topic. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's divert attention to something else because you got me on this one. And that's where those social media warriors really have a tough time is one, we don't even know where they get their information half the time. We really have no idea where they get some of this stuff. But because they normally do not want to have that, hey, nobody really likes confrontation. I don't think there's a morning you wake up and you go, I can't wait to get some confrontations out of my system by about noon.
Well,
but
for some people, I don't know, man.
That's the thing that Charlie Kirk was so good at is at least inviting you to engage in the conversation, whether you like them or not. And over 80% of the people, when they're leaving, did he convince them? Did he switch them over? No. But they normally would have the same thing. I still disagree with you. Hey, but you don't seem like that bit. Thank you for coming here. I really appreciated the chance to talk about it. And
it gets people thinking.
Gets them thinking. And towards the end, the crowds he was getting on those campuses were in the thousands. And he actually had to start challenging liberal thinking students to come up because guess what was happening? They're getting outnumbered. He would do these campus events, and as much as he liked the agreements, he would actually say you wanted to talk to Kirk and you agree with him for the most part, he'd say, thank you so much for your time, Jacob. I get it, but you know what? I need to talk to some of the libs. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I'm here for the disagreements. I want to know.
That was his thing. He'd tell people, hey, if you disagree with me, go to the front of the line. And when I've spoken about our school and stuff publicly in different venues, I've joked, I've used that line with people. And I've actually said in the name, a la Charlie Kirk, if you disagree with me, come on up, you get the first question. And so, to kind of put a bow on this segment tonight, Brooklyn, I kind of want to finish with you. And I kind of want to know from a young person's perspective, from what you've seen in the last week, what do you think's going to happen to Charlie Kirk's movement, to Turning Point USA? Obviously, you cited some statistics earlier, but what are you seeing in the last week on social media and at school? And what are you hearing about Charlie and his movement and where it goes from here?
I think that it's going to go up from here. I think the positive's going to outweigh the negative, and I think we're going to open a lot of young people's eyes to what's truth, what's factual, and exactly what Charlie spoke. I was reading some tributes about Charlie today this afternoon, and the Alaskan governor, I give the credit to, said something along the lines of Charlie believed that our Constitution was not a relic to be ignored, but a living guarantee that ensures every voice, every faith, and every idea has the right to be heard. He demonstrated courage not by shouting people down, but by his refusal to be silent when silence would have been easier. And I think him writing that, I think that's what a lot of us are thinking. And a lot, speaking with my peers, a lot of them are thinking as well that we need to speak our voice now. Like this, we need to be louder than ever. And we're not going to let this be shut down because, a man that felt strongly about this, his life was sadly taken, and we need to be louder. We need to be selfless like Charlie was and stood up for our generation. And I think it's our turn now to stand up and be factual, the most important part, and, keep the Bible behind us at all times, follow everything up with, facts, and biblical truths. And I think this is going to have
This
a
is the
positive
start of
outcome.
something.
I think this is the start of something new.
So you mean I can't go out and loot? And I was kind of looking forward to doing my first looting and rioting here.
Right?
I thought I could break the
You
streak.
get some good goods.
That's finally justification. Like finally something happened and I could go mess some stuff up. So I got to behave. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, where were you?
All right,
You're going to loot Menards, John? Yeah, you're going to go get some lumber from Menards or what?
Yeah, and then sell it on the market. You know how that goes.
Yeah, you and I would have to take a loot class. I don't think we know what to do.
We'd be bad writers.
Yeah, go get a shake from Dairy Queen or something.
Accidentally pay for it. Oh, it's just a force of habit. I'm sorry. Give me that money back.
Yeah. I think you're right, Brooklyn. You saw with Donald Trump, kind of the Donald Trump effect that in pop culture, athletics with young people, you're starting to see like all these closet conservatives come out. And then Charlie Kirk, of course, amplified that. And then now it feels like in the last week, you're kind of watching a tidal wave of that. And I think all kinds of people who hadn't, spoken out before are going to. And that was part of, like I told you, John, part of the reason why I wanted to get us back from summer break now with the podcast is because, we need to talk about these things and people need to know, there's people in our community and elsewhere that, hey, maybe you don't know where people like us stand on things. And faith has been a big part of my life in the last 15 years. I know it's been a big part of yours, John. And we went to church together, shared church pews together in the past. And only see it the positive, despite all the negative. I only see it on a positive trajectory. Thanks a lot, in part to Charlie Kirk. Johnny, any closing thoughts, man?
Well, first off, we miss you, Rick.
Yeah,
It's episode 1 of season number 2. We miss you, and have no fear. Rick is going to be with us plenty in this season. Many episodes. It was just a scheduling conflict tonight.
He's a man of many hats.
Yes, that's what it was in Brooklyn. Hopefully, this won't be your first and only. Right. Might as well. We got to get these young kids.
We need a young voice on here.
We need the voices on there.
I agree. So if she's willing to come back, I think she'd be a voice of sanity among us old guys, and we'll get Dr. Bat back in the mix, and we may try to cut in a little bit of his opinion on things on the Charlie Kirk subject, because we respect his opinion, of course, too. But I'm glad we were able to talk about this tonight. It's a good, fitting way to get back into things, because I think Charlie Kirk would have appreciated that. So with that, Brooklyn, as our young person tonight, you want to take us out in prayer? Can you do that?
Yeah, I'd love to. One thing I just wanted to, mention before we get finished up is I wanted to just, as someone who, feels strongly about my own beliefs, I just wanted, to say to our younger generation, be willing to challenge norms, be willing to do what Charlie did. And I was reading a verse today that, really touched me. It was Acts chapter 18, verse 9 through 10. And it said something along the lines of, don't be afraid, don't be silent, speak up for what you believe, and the Lord will be with you through every step.
Hey,
Amen.
I think that's the perfect prayer to end it with.
Amen.
There, Brooklyn. Thank you for that. Johnny, you can close us out.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're tuned into the Axe and Scalpel podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, a whole bunch of platforms. We're all over the place, but hopefully you'll be sticking with us. Till next time, have yourselves a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.